Hey Karen, I see your question there. I just want to put a quick disclaimer. So if I cut my audio really quickly, it's probably because one of my kids is screaming
Hey Karen, I
upstairs.
see your question there.
Oh, and I'm
I just want
actually
to.
I need to turn my output off. Hold on. There we go. Another example of prototype. All right, so the one we went over in class was kind of like a generic, like the animal thing, right? So, oops, hold on. I gotta move my tabs around. Kind of a large. Okay. So with prototypes, I guess just the main point is that there's typically involves like methods. So let's say if we have object is the native JavaScript object, and on it there are various prototypes. So there's object. Oh, I'm sorry. Object prototype keys. That's one. Or arrays. Arrays are typically used more often with their prototype methods. So there's array.map, which is actually array.prototype.map, array.prototype.filter, right? And there's a slew of others. And really just this is just to say that anytime you create an array, so say var array equals 1, 2, 3, right? Anytime I have this array, like this array object, I'm going to have these methods available. This just says every single array should have this, whether I create it, copy it, or it gets passed to me from some other function. And really, that's all it is. Creating prototypes is simply like we had recreated map, right? So we did prototype dot map 2, and then with the equal sign, we're actually assigning it a value because array.prototype.map2 doesn't exist, but we could attach it this way, and that would be our function that would take, the element, or I'm sorry, the callback, and this arg, et cetera, et cetera. So anytime you see something .prototype, it just means that it's available on every single instance of that type, right? So there's also string.prototype.split. And so that's the function that splits a string up into an array based on the character you want to split on, right? So anytime you see this word, it really just means, hey, I have access to this no matter where I'm creating this or where I'm accessing it. Does that help? I think there's a delay in when I speak and when it actually is live. Okay, great. And what I'll do is I'll also, I mean, it's on the live stream, but anytime we talk about something, I'll just make some comments and I'll post it in Slack. They can have more than one type of event listener, but as soon as well, I guess it depends. I'll have to look that up. I'm pretty sure that the button itself can only have one of that type applied to it. Uh, but you can have event listeners on, like, say, the global window object. Uh, you can have as many of those listening for those events, I believe. I'm going to look that up. I want to make sure that I'm accurate in that. So, like, if we're to actually, let me just think about this real quick while I'm also looking it up. If I have, let's test that. Let's just test it out. I'm pretty sure there can only be one unless you're, like I said, you're applying it to the window and listening for different events and different objects. So let's do this. Let's say we have a button equals document dot create element dot, oops, and it's a type button, and then we'll say button dot on click equals a function, and I'm pretty sure I know what's going to happen here. And all we're going to do is we're going to alert and say event handler 1. We're going to do the same thing, and you can probably imagine what's going to happen here, right? This one is going to override the previous one. Oh, okay. Maybe rephrase. Maybe you could just give me an example of what you're hoping to accomplish, and then we could see if the event listener you're trying to apply, or multiple event listeners trying to apply, let's see if that's, maybe we can just take advantage of one and just do multiple things inside that event handling routine, or if you truly need more than one. Maybe just an example of what you need to accomplish. Okay. Actually, it just sounds like the button just needs to initiate the function that's going to handle maybe doing multiple things. So you'd really only need one on click. And then that from there, now that you're responding to that event, you can do as many things as you need to at that point, right? So the button itself only needs to have that one click event, but the function that fires in response to that event, you can do as many things as you need to in that function, even calling other functions from it, right? So for example, on the button that I was starting to create here, let me just take this out, right? So instead of saying all this, so the user, you could say, so the user clicked the button, right? There's an event that gets passed to it. Maybe you don't need the particular event, but you just need to respond to it. And then you could do operation number 1, and then do operation number 2, right? You can do as many things as you need to in this function, but you only need one click event to handle it. And then this could fire maybe other functions from here, and so on and so forth. Does that make sense? Correct. Yep. And then from there, you can handle the user events on maybe whatever pops up in that new screen. Then there maybe event handles on those particular elements once that screen's open, right? And then you can respond to those as the user clicks through them or what have you. Hey, Jesse, quick question. Is it possible to listen to only other people's responses on the Zoom call? Because I'm getting my audio back as well, and it's kind of confusing to listen to. Other people's responses on the Zoom call, because I'm getting my audio back as well, and it's kind of confusing to listen to. Other people's responses on the Zoom call, because I'm getting my
I just heard that about 12 times.
Yeah, me too.
I just heard that about 12 times. Okay, so to clarify on my question that I started with, the one event, it'll open up that button, which is going to open up another screen. So can you
Okay, so
do
to clarify on my
event
question that I
inside an
started with,
event?
the one event, it'll open up that button, which
Okay, maybe this will work because I'm playing the audio. Do you want to try asking that question again? Okay, maybe this will work because I'm playing. Oh no. All right, we're gonna try to get around this recursive audio issue here real quick. Okay, so I have a headset plugged in. Hopefully that doesn't do this recursive thing. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, whoa, I gotta turn this down. Blew my eardrums out there. Okay. Okay. So let's try that. If you want to try asking your question again.
Okay, so my question was, since I'm creating, so the event listener is going to open on that button, it's going to open a new screen. So can you create, which I'm at that point, I would have to have, I would assume, more event listeners, because it would have to listen for when they drop a pin to put where their arrow is, and when they input their score, if they don't use the one that I already have it generate.
Oh, I see. So the button would only have one event listener. That's the click. But then there's other elements that would have their own listeners.
Okay, so right, because when they click on the button, it's going to open a new screen, and there's going to be. So I guess I'm going to have to. Each one would have their own, because there'll be a button where they can choose what the photo is that they're going of the target that they're shooting at, and then drop a pin, and based upon information that they put in the beginning, whichever side they're shooting archery. Oh my gosh, I can't think.
Yeah, so you have, okay, let's just start from the beginning. There's a button they click and it opens up a new window, right?
Yes.
Or a pop-up. So that event listener's done. It did its job. It opened the window. So now there's other elements in this new window that would have their own listeners that would respond to very specific events. So maybe there's an input that's listening for, the on input event, right? So the user could type something in. Maybe that entire window, whatever it is, has some sort of mouse over or mouse, whatever the mouse key up. I forgot the name of the event. We'd have to look it up. But there's a way to check to see when you release a mouse button, right? And then you can listen for.
But mine's an app.
Right.
Yeah, I decided to do things the hard way, because mine won't be a website. It's not going to be like on the laptop. It's going to be an app, because they're going to be out in the field with it.
Okay. Are you using? I guess because you can utilize a browser on a mobile device, right? So is it going to be based in a browser, or is it going to be based in like a native app?
No, I think I'm going to actually end up using React Native.
Okay.
Talking to a couple people, because I want them to be able to download it from either the Google Play Store or iTunes or whatever device they have.
Okay, so React Native, that's going to be a different solution, and it's still an event type of like an event listener of the sort, right? It's not exactly what we went over in class, but there's libraries for React Native for listening for events and for handling different types of things. We'd have to do a little research to see exactly what libraries would handle the situations you're looking for.
Yeah, because I think the only other one that a couple of other people have suggested is native script, if I'm right. If I'm saying that right.
I'm not exactly sure because I don't work in React Native. I work in React on the browser side mostly. So I touched React Native, I think, once about 2 years ago. So I was experimenting with it, but didn't get too far into it. It's going to require a little bit of research to see, what libraries exist to solve the problems you're trying to solve. I wonder if there's anyone else here that's used React Native.
Well, I know that I want to say Max has used it.
Okay.
And I know that Linda and Jennifer, one of the TAs. They used it at Hackups when they had the hackathon.
Hackathon? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm not a great source of info for React Native. I would query Max to see if he has some good resources on that. Because honestly, I would be Googling around myself. I mean, I can start looking up stuff too.
Okay. I just was curious because I know that, I mean, I'm assuming anyway, I'm guessing that being that I'm going to be doing an app, it's going to be, I mean, I'm still obviously still going to be using JavaScript, but it'll be, I know, a little different.
Right. The concept is the same, right? So you're still responding to a user interaction.
Right.
And there's still going to be some sort of callback function to handle what to do next. It's just a matter of, whether you're working in the DOM or working on a mobile app, screen, depends on how you'll implement that function. But the concept is the exact same, where user does this, I receive an event, I handle it, I do A, B, and C afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, that doesn't sound like a very good answer.
No. I mean, I understand it. That's so, yeah, it does. I mean, it makes sense to me. I understand what you're saying. It's still going to be the same. The
pattern's still the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still going to have to be built the same way. It's just going to listen it might be worded a little different, but it's still
right. It's going to listen for different elements to be interacted with, like the screen, like a touch event.
Yeah.
Instead of a click event.
Right.
Right. In fact, I think it's not called touch. I think it's called press. So when the screen gets pressed or unpressed or something like that.
Right. Which makes sense because you press the screen when you want to do with whatever you're doing.
Right.
So. Okay. Yeah, that did help a lot. So because I got to thinking about it, I'm like, okay, I have this laid out. Am I gonna so I was a little at first I was a little confused with laying it out and everything, but now that you say that, it makes sense that each one will have its own like event listener and function and everything.
Okay.
So it makes sense now.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that helped.
It did.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep.
Hey, Joey, I have a question about the code that I think it's from the first day that I was in there. I got it from Slack, but it's not working for me.
Okay. What for which part?
I keep getting an error about its attribute options. It's like you have it's the create div function. And inside there, you create an array and it's equal to object.keys, and you're passing it the object that you passed in the function. And then you're using a for each loop to go through, I think, each key in a set and assign it an attribute.
Oh, you mean when we're iterating over the options?
Yeah, but it says attribute options is not something. Whenever I go to run it.
Is there any way you can post your code snippet in the chat? It'll be hard for me to diagnose it.
Yeah, I literally copied and pasted it, and it just won't work for me.
Okay, this was in. Where was this? Is something I pasted in?
Yes, yeah, I think this was Monday's class, which I wasn't.
Oh, okay. Let's see. So is it just the div part, right?
that's all I've got to and couldn't get it to work. So of course I obsessed over the part that didn't work instead of going for it. And
Okay, so
that's
let's.
my attempt to try to
So-
see what's going on.
Can you see where I'm highlighting on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so just this part first.
Yes.
Okay, let's take a look at that. I'll bring that over to. Let me move my Zoom controls around. They tend to overlay everything I'm doing. Okay. Creates a div. Oops. With attributes. So there's a function create div. Yep. The first thing, let me just indent this thing because it's hard for me to read without it indented. Okay, so it looks like you're trying to create a div hat with an ID of sausage. Okay, so let's just take a look. So create div, it takes an object argument. Cool. All right, so then we create a new div. Everything's cool so far. Array of keys. Yep, we should have an array of one element at this point. An array of keys that for each iterator, we get the key, we log the key, div.set attribute, key. See, this needs to say object argument. Right, because it's object argument here, this is the variable name. So that needs to be the same reference. It was just an old variable name you were referencing.
Okay.
See, now it created the div. Yeah, it was just because it was it happens a lot when you copy paste stuff. It's like, oh, did I rename everything properly after I copied and pasted it? That's all it was.
Okay. Well, that's how it was in Slack.
Oh, then I didn't do it. That's my fault.
Yeah.
I didn't rename it properly everywhere. Sorry about that.
No.
So whatever it's referenced here, just make sure you're referencing the same thing. See, even someone like me who's been coding for a while, even I make a slew of mistakes, even trivial ones.
So can you explain the function iterator? Because I is that something you named or is that?
That's just a name I gave it. You don't have to actually give it a name. If you don't give it a name, it's an anonymous function.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, that's okay because we're not referencing this function anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, if I give it the name, if something blows up and I get a stack trace in my console, I'll know exactly what function it was that had the failure. Whereas if I don't give it a name, I won't know exactly what function that is, and I'll just have to hunt and peck until I find it. Right? So that's really all it's doing for us in this case is that if you have an error, you'll have a better idea of where that error is occurring when it logs the error to the console. You'll actually see, oh, error was in function iterator, whatever that error was. So it's a way to target it when you're debugging things. Now, if I were to create this function elsewhere, and then reference it here, then I would have to give it a name, right? Because how else would I reference an anonymous function? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
I'm having trouble, like when I see a function, like how do you know that function isn't? Well, like for each is like I guess the method, but like how do you know when a function is like named by the human or is it like a keyword method? Because I thought iterator, who names their function iterator, it must be like something that he found and
it's just I think at the time I was making the example that you could name the function,
mm-hmm.
and it's an appropriate name for what it's doing, right? It's not a keyword or anything like that. There's no keyword in JavaScript that says you can't use the name iterator, but it's describing what the function is doing, right? So by naming your functions specific words, when someone else is looking at your code, or even when you're looking at it, like say a year later, you know the intent right away. You say, oh, this function's an iterator. It must be iterating over something, or it must be a callback to like another iteration method, right? Or if I were to name this, elephant, it doesn't really give someone else a clue as to what it's doing, right? So the name is actually very important. And And I was only half joking when I said that naming is like the hardest thing. um, because sometimes you just have to name something just a little bit different because you're using similar things somewhere else in your code, right? So the name just really gives it the intent. You could call it anything as long as it's not a reserved keyword, but naming it for other humans to read is kind of important to get the message across of what you're trying to do with it.
Yeah, I understand that, but
Yeah.
so where I thought the function iterator was like for each. With for each, you have specific parameters that you need to pass it. For each is already defined, so you have to stick to that. So when I saw iterator, I thought I need to go look up a function called
Oh,
iterator to see.
gotcha.
So
Yeah,
that's
no,
why
it's
it was distinguishing when someone makes a function versus when it's like a defined function or however you call those. How
gotcha.
can you tell?
If you're unsure, then I would type in Google, I'd say MDN JavaScript and then the name of the function I'm looking for, right?
Okay.
If you get no no results, someone probably just made that name up and they're just using it because they created a function. Whereas if I were to type in MDN JavaScript for each, I'm going to get a reference to what that is, right? Obviously,
Right.
it's something native to the language, and it's really just a matter of getting used, knowing what's out there, right? Little by little, you'll grow your your knowledge base of what function exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that comes with time and just getting used to seeing it over and over and over again.
Okay.
Yep. But if you do a quick Google search on something and you get back no results, especially the targeted thing like MDN, JavaScript, and then the name, chances are it's just someone named something in their code or whatever.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. No problem.
Okay, I have a question. And I guess maybe it's because it's in a like Word format, but I'm gonna paste it in Slack so you can see what I'm talking about.
Okay, sounds good.
I just got so scared. I forgot this was up. Oh my goodness. Whew.
Word problems are not my thing, so maybe that's why I'm like having such a tough time with it. I can get as far as like function is old enough to drink, and then I'm like lost.
Okay, so let's
Everything I try has not worked, and I'm like want to pull my hair out.
okay, let's see if we can tackle this, right? Let's go over to here. That didn't paste in. Okay. Let's comment this out. These zoom controls really get in your way. Hold on one second. Okay. So write a function, call it is old enough to drink. Let's see. Given a number, in this case, an age is old enough to drink returns whether a person of this given age is old enough to legally drink in the US. All right. So we would just write a function to tell this, right? So we would have function is old enough to drink. Now, are there any requirements to this where you're pulling it from? Like, do we have to use a date? Do we have to use just a number to represent the age?
No, the only thing that they had in after is old enough to drink, it just said age. That was it.
An age. Okay, so we take an age. All right, we just need to return true or false, right?
Right.
Okay, so we would say we would return age is greater than or equal to 21. That will return either a true or a false Boolean value.
Okay, then I was totally overthinking it.
Okay. Now you could go a step further. You could accept a date, right, and then check the date.
Yeah, I was totally overthinking all of that because I'm like, oh, okay, let me see. I want to put like, so legal is equal to, is old enough to drink, and that and like then like okay, then that's equal to an actual number. I completely overthought all of that.
So you could actually make this function cater to, like, say, any country, right? You could say person age and then age. What is it? Age, not limit, but what's the word I'm looking for? Let's call it age requirement, right? And then you could say return person age is greater than or equal to age requirement. And then you could pass anything in, right? You just made this more generic. So if this number is greater than or equal to this one, you can consume alcohol.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. No, it completely makes sense now. Like I said, I was completely overthinking like everything that I wanted to do.
And then we could give the example of this, right? We could say, how would this look like in ES6? Oops. Age, we'll call it age rec, goes to person. Oops. All right, so that's the ES6 way of doing it.
What if you put a number in there instead of like person age or age requirement? What if you put like an actual number that still, it would
So
still.
if I were to do this,
Nope, up at the top in the actual function part of it. Instead of having person age and age requirement, if you just put just like a number, like 21 in there, up above.
here,
Yep.
just this.
Nope, in the parentheses. Yeah, in there.
Oh, then I wouldn't need this. You can't use a number. You can't have a variable reference that starts with a number. Like this would be illegal. You would just do this.
No, I meant it. So if you replaced person age with just a number, like put 20, yeah.
That won't work.
Okay.
Because what it's doing is it's saying, hey, I see you, there's a parameter here. Oh, but it starts with a number. That's not allowed. It has to start with,
Okay.
right, that would be okay, right? And then I'd say like this. Yeah, so names have to start with an alpha character.
Okay.
Yep. The other thing you could do is you could say age, give it a default value.
Oh, right, because you're making it equal to that.
Oh, actually, hold on a second. I'm doing this wrong. I don't have person age anymore. There, now now it's legal here. Person age, and then pass in the age. If you don't, it's equal to 21, and then it would do the Boolean logic here.
Okay. That makes sense now. I just maybe because it was just in a like word problem format. Those are not fun for me.
Yeah, there's certain formats of problems that I just can't wrap my head around. Like it mostly deals with memorizing things like in certain orders. I have to write them out.